Hello everyone, in this video I'm just going to briefly show you what the set origin operator can do in random flow. You can find it in extras, submenu, in object, and it's in the third position under split mesh. So this is actually an operator that can be used in combination with random scatter. Um, what it does is changes the origin point of the object to the farthest location in the X, Y, and Z axis. So um, you can use it outside of the add-on if, of course, you want to change the origin using that method. But let me just show you what the workflow is for when using the operator with random scatter. So you can see the orange dot. I don't know if you can see that. That is the representation of the origin point of an object in Blender. And when I select this, for example, the origin point is there with the orange dot here. So these are all modeled from a cylinder, except for this. This is from a cube. And I didn't touch the original origin point of the cylinder, so it remained there. So the origin point is, of course, the pivot point of the object and also where the scaling actually centers on. And if I use these objects for scatter, assign them in a collection, Control G, then F9, rename it so it doesn't go directly to the collection group by default. Let's rename it scatter objects. And here, I'm going to use the random scatter operator in random flow and use collection and use the scatter objects collection. So you can see here that they're not exactly being scattered to the surface correctly. I mean, they are overlapping the source object. So let's just go ahead and find where the size is. There we go. So the point seed is when you randomize the location of the scatter objects. And as you can see, it's not being placed on the actual surface of the source object. So what we need to do is, to correctly do that, is actually relocate or reposition the origin point to the very bottom of our scatter object. So when they rotate from this location here. So you can go ahead and probably set the 3D cursor here if you want to do it manually. Selection to cursor to select selected, and then go to object mode, press W, and then set origin to 3D cursor. There we go. So let's just undo that. But if you want to do it for multiple objects using just a single action or an operator, you can then, in this case, you can then use the set origin. So by default, it will set the origin point on the negative Z direction, and this is the negative Z direction. And when you model the objects standing up in Blender using the literal XYZ direction, so this is pointing towards the negative Z axis, and this is pointing towards positive axis. So this is standing up basically in Blender. So when you model it that way, by default, the set origin operator will work correctly for that. So this is the default settings, and it will just, this is actually the use farthest toggle is actually off. But when we use it, we need to apply the mirror. So apply the mirror, and also if it does result in an error or in unwanted result, you can just use Control A to apply the rotation and scale and retry it. Okay, so objects and set origin. Okay, so right now you can see that those tiny dots have been relocated on the farthest point in the negative z-axis of the objects. So the farthest point is the vertex, but if it's a face that's on a plane and that's the lowest point, then of course all of the vertex of that face will be used as the farthest point. So when we rotate it, it rotates on the new origin point. And when we use it as a scatter object, now they are placed on they're no longer overlapping the source object. So let's just meddle with the size and the margin so they don't overlap the outside of faces, and then we can just increase the points and so cluster. So we can also decluster. So basically that's how it works. And let me just explain the settings for a bit. Object, set origin. So you can set it via axis or the selected elements in the objects. So for example, if using the axis for a certain area, set it. You can manually set it to the selected faces instead of using the farthest point in the z-axis. So for example, I just want to set it on this area here. So I select those faces and object, go to objects, set origin, you selected, and the other parameters are no longer enabled, meaning that they are no longer needed for this kind of option. So okay, and now you can see that it is placed on our selected objects. So this is the average location of the selected elements. So for example, if you select this, the new origin point will be probably at this height here. So let me just redo the operation. So yeah, there we go. And when we rotate it, it rotates to the new origin point. And when we use it as a scatter object, what's the name? Cylinder. So object, random scatter and mesh, and we're going to use cylinder. There we go. So you can see that it is placed on the surface based on the origin point, and the rest is overlapping the mesh. Okay. So let's just set it back to our, or using the literal XYZ axis. In object, set origin, get back to axis, and press OK. So axis, that is origin, and then we have selected. And then you can set here which of the literal XYZ axis you can set the farthest point to. So either farthest point in the x-axis or farthest point in the y-axis, and in our case, z-axis. And you can see you can actually set the location. This should be direction. I'll set it back to I'll rename it to direction when another major update hits. I'm thinking of creating a new operator for random flow. So either it's random symbols or random decals. I think I'd rather go for random symbols, so it's more generalized. You can use the symbols as decals. You can use the symbols for anything else. And then negative, positive. So in this case, z-axis, you can use the negative You can set it the direction or the location, the negative or the positive z-axis. The tolerance is how precise the farthest elements that is captured. So 0.001, that's very precise. And if you increase that, that means that it will include more vertices for the operation. So it's kind of like smoothing the detection of the farthest point. And when we use farthest, if you use the farthest toggle, then it will no longer average the location, meaning that if you use selected, it will not average the location. It will set it to the farthest direction in the selected elements and also in the axis type. Yeah, so let's set it back. Let's reuse the operation for this operator object. Okay. And this turret here, this is the intersect object. So this turret, if you want to just in your ship, the background asset ship, you can use this operator to quickly scatter the turret. So mesh intersect object, and the rotation is stripped. No. Axis uniform. Margin. We can decluster. Margin is 0. Okay, it's probably the cluster. And you can just randomize the position, randomize the rotation. So in this case, we're just going to use the z-axis. So since this is projected, their alignment is projected via the normals of the faces, then this also rotates relative to the normal. And when we use strict and set this to something like 45 degrees, you can rotate the axis on 45-degree intervals. That is the use of this strict option here. Free means that it will scale from, I think, -45 to 45 degrees. Or, oh yeah, 45 to 45 degrees. So strict. So by interval of 30 degrees. Okay, so let's just set this to something like this. And after this, once you, for example, this is the result that you want, you can just select the random object or randomized scatter object, then delete the things that you want using pre-select. Shift F and use delete linked. So this is why I'm preaching for the direct output and not GeoNode, because I can definitely create a GeoNode equivalent for this, but I think having to touch the result is much more powerful than actually being it totally just procedural, because with it randomized, you can go back to it later, but you can't really touch the result. You can. So for example, this scatter object here, I want to change its position, then I just select it and do it like that. If it is modifier based and procedural, you cannot touch it because the result is virtual and it's generated by the modifier setup. But being said, both has their own advantages. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna end the video here and we're starting to get off topic. Okay, so that's it for the set origin operator. If you have any questions, use the comment section below or the links in the description. subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you for watching, and you have a nice day.